Look, Coffey, thank you very much for joining us today. The Azerbaijan Red Crescent Society dispatched a humanitarian aid convoy to the Armenian community in Karabakh, which has now arrived at the city post between Aghdam and Khankendi under Russian peacekeepers' control. According to the media, the Red Crescent Society representatives are currently in talks with the Russian peacekeepers to ensure that the aid is delivered to the residents. You follow the situation. What is your assessment of the situation in Karabakh?
Well, it's very clear that the Armenians living in Karabakh need this aid and this assistance. It's going to be a matter of the Russian peacekeepers to use their authority over the leaders of the Armenian Karabakh community to ensure that this much-needed assistance arrives from the Aghdam-Khankendi road. From an outsider's point of view, it seems to me that the people living in Karabakh are being held hostage by their leadership, and they're in desperate need of this food. And there's a way to get this food if the leadership of the Armenian Karabakh community is willing to let the food and the aid through the gate.
And Azerbaijan's primary concern about the Lachen road is that it's being used to transport landmines and military equipment into the country. Azerbaijan also says that Armenia is preventing the opening of a corridor between Nakhchivan and the Azerbaijani mainland. What is the stance of the international community on these issues?
The Azerbaijani government has every right to want to know and monitor what goes through, what crosses its international border and goes into its country. And that's what they're doing right now at Lachen. And also, we are approaching the 3-year anniversary of not only the start of the Second Karabakh War, but the end of the Second Karabakh War, which led to a ceasefire agreement where Armenia agreed to allow transit through its country between Azerbaijan proper and its autonomous Republic of Nakhchivan. And there's been no progress made at all on this specific issue, even though Azerbaijan has lived up to its part of the ceasefire arrangement from November of 2020. There's been very little progress made on the Armenian side. And I think we're seeing a frustration build in Baku over the international community's lack of engagement on this issue. Yes, we have seen positive developments over the past several months from Brussels and from Washington, D.C., but it seems that even those two initiatives have slowly stopped and are no longer a main focus of either city right now.
And what do you think about the current risks, and how can tensions be reduced between the sides to foster collaboration and confidence building?
Right now, it seems that Russia, as the peacekeeping force, as the guarantor of security in Karabakh, is either unable or unwilling to live up to the mandate it received after the November 2020 ceasefire agreement. This has created opportunities for both Brussels and Washington, D.C. to play a greater role. And as I said, we have seen some positive developments in recent months, but it now seems that this road has come to a dead end. And I think right now the White House, of course, the State Department needs to double down on its efforts to bring all sides to the negotiating table to try to find a break of this impasse that will allow the people, the Armenians living in Karabakh, access to the foodstuffs that they require. Now, it's also a double-edged sword for Baku because the messaging coming from the Azerbaijani government for the past couple of years has been that the ethnic Armenians living in Karabakh are Azerbaijani citizens, and they'll be taken care of and looked after by the Azerbaijani state. And I think that's what we're seeing the Azerbaijani government trying to demonstrate recently with the convoys through the Aghdam-Khankendi road that's being used. But the Azerbaijani government has to make sure that this doesn't go too far And if at the end of the day, the ethnic Armenians living in Karabakh, if they need food, if they need medicine, they need to get it one way or the other. So it's a very tense and fragile time right now in the South Caucasus, at a time when we don't need a resurgence of fighting, another major war breaking out in the region.
And as you mentioned, the United States and EU have recently increased their diplomatic efforts to encourage long-lasting, durable peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. What do you think about the prospects for normalization of relations between the two countries?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I tend to take a longer view of these things. I don't think a breakthrough is imminent, especially with how tensions are right now. But I think many Armenian people understand that their future is better off normalizing with Azerbaijan, normalizing with Turkey, getting economically integrated into the region. Think how many billions of dollars in foreign direct investment has been denied to the region because of the ongoing conflicts between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So I think ultimately Armenians and Azerbaijanis know that their future is better off normalizing relations, cooperating together on regional infrastructure projects, of increasing trade and drawing in foreign direct investment. But right now, Russia's preventing this because Russia doesn't want this to happen, because then Moscow would lose influence in the South Caucasus. So I am optimistic that eventually we will see a normalization, but I think we're probably some ways off.
And as we previously discussed, I'd like to hear your thoughts regarding the future of the Russian peacekeeping mission in the region. Moscow maintains about 2,000 peacekeeping forces in Karabakh, and according to some observers, Russia may seek to extend their mandate beyond its expiration in 2025. What are your thoughts on Moscow's potential plans?
Well, if you're a Russian army officer, or a soldier and you're in Karabakh, you're probably very grateful and thankful that you're not in Ukraine. So there'll be an interest from inside the Russian military to keep this peacekeeping force there. So there are fewer troops that might have to go to the meat grinder in eastern Ukraine. But you look at the actions of the Russian peacekeeping force in recent months, and you see a peacekeeping force that's actually starting to behave more like an occupation force. And when I speak to people in Baku, it's my impression that they're getting impatient with the behavior of the Russian peacekeepers in Karabakh. There is no doubt in my mind that the people, that the government, although they won't state it publicly, perhaps, the government of Azerbaijan wants the Russian peacekeepers out before 2025 and 2025 at the absolute latest. There's no appetite right now to renew the mandate. And I can't imagine a scenario, at least under the current circumstances, where this mandate will be renewed in 2025. I think a lot's going to change between now and then.
Luke Coffey, thank you very much for talking to us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.